This interview is part of the History Heard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of the video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized History Heard representative. Today is July 19th, 2012 at 3 p.m. This is an interview with Dr. Richard Gatti in Los Angeles, California. He was born on January 12th, 1937 in Hoboken, New Jersey. With stem cell research, it's very controversial, of course. Do you think that controversy is justified?
Well, I don't know specifically what part of the controversy, but you're right. Stem cells are controversial at the moment. And I think the reason is simply that it's hard to define a stem cell. The Minnesota Times, I guess was the name of the newspaper, I don't remember now, asked me around the time that they were covering David's story in Minnesota. They called me one day and said, "Can you give us a picture of a stem cell?" I said, no one can give you a picture of a stem cell. We don't really know how to differentiate it from all the other cells in the bone marrow. That's still true today. We have a better idea of what it should look like because we can sort cells and isolate groups of cells. But we don't know how to tell from looking at it. It would be like you trying to tell from looking at a person what college they graduated from. To use the same analogy of students getting educated.
Right.
You can't tell that from looking at a person. And then there may be other ways, but that would be hard to do. Well, the controversy is partially because of that. It's too easy to fake your way through in talking to a potential family, a potential marrow candidate, right? And say, "Oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that." Where's the proof? Well, we have proof of this and that and that and that, but it's too easy to fake the data.
Right.
And where the stem cell organizations have tried to step in and provide guidance, they've been threatened by lawsuits from these companies that are saying, "Be careful, if you put us out of business, we'll sue you for libel," because you can't prove much of what you say either.
Right.
And some of that's true. I mean, we wouldn't be doing research if we knew the answers, right?
Right.
So that's part of the controversy. Is it warranted in terms of the amount of potential? Oh no, the potential is enormous. I mean, we've only scratched the surface of transplants.
What do you see as that, in the future, what could that create, that potential?
Well, for example, 2 weeks ago, I was in Iceland. And I was talking to an Icelandic surgeon who's also a scientist and had just been back to his training ground in Stockholm at the Karolinska, where I also trained after I left Minnesota. And he had just done a stem cell transplant the day before on an Ethiopian patient with esophageal cancer, with tracheal cancer. And they had to remove the whole trachea, the windpipe. And his chances of living without a windpipe were not very great. You could put tubes, but they get infected, and nothing works like nature works left to itself, right? Left to its own. So again, they were, between a rock and a hard place. And so they attempted to replace his trachea with a plastic mesh or neoprene, I'm not sure what it was, but there are a lot of things you can envision that a mesh that would make a tube, right? They had manufactured a tube to the exact specifications of his own trachea from the X-rays that they've been able to take. But it's just plastic. It had no cells. Then they put that into a petri dish of stem cells. Now, I got this all over the telephone the next day that the surgery was done. I don't even know how it's turned out, because it's now 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later. And I don't know if the stem cells were the patient's own stem cells, or they were stem cells from another trachea. They seem to think that these were the kind of stem cells that would make a lining, a tracheal lining. And they put the mesh into the petri dish and waited for the cells to grow onto the mesh and cover it so that it was almost completely covered. And then they went in and transplanted or implanted that trachea with the cells on it into his trachea.
Wow.
It's like science fiction.
Almost.
Now, has he survived? My guess, not very likely. But it's the first step.
Right.
Absolutely. I think it's the Indian Upanishads that say, if there's no first step to a journey, you haven't begun the journey.
I like that.
Yeah. So they've taken this step. It's a very logical approach, right?
Absolutely.
To do this. Now, you know it would be rejected if they're not his stem cells. Or that there are some new tricks being tried. Not tricks, I mean in a nice way. There are some new ideas being tried for this, right? To get around transplantation barriers, histocompatibility barriers. But that, we kind of know where we're going. And the safest way to deal with that would be to take stem cells of his own.